Hi all, we're going to look now at David Howell versus Peter Wells from round 5 of the Jack Spiegel Memorial Tournament. So Howell kicked off with e4 and Peter Wells played c5, and now we see the dreaded c3 Sicilian at work again. Peter Wells played provocatively with knight f6, a kind of Alapin defence idea, provoking the white pawn forward, which Howell played. So he played e5, and now after knight d5 we see knight f3, and now after knight c6 David Howell plays d4, so he's occupying the centre. Peter Wells now takes on d4, and now instead of an immediate capture, I think this is theoretical, just bishop c4 first, and then the black knight comes to b6 to attack the bishop, and then the bishop retreats to b3. And now here, instead of materialistically grabbing another pawn, Peter Wells, at least at first, he plays d5 now. So it seems as though black's got a very nice position. The knights are kind of pressurising the centre and some key squares. The bishop can come out perhaps later to f5 or g4. White played now e takes d6 en passant, and after queen takes d6, white castled. Now here we see this dangerous attacking piece, this b3 bishop, and Wells wants to neutralise it, so he played bishop e6. David Howell simply played now knight a3. So he's introducing ideas of knight b5 now, gaining a tempo on the black queen. Here now, Peter Wells decided to take on c3, so winning another pawn, and now queen e2 was played. So White's playing this in quite a gung-ho manner, allowing these pawn sacks, but I think it's to do with increasing the level of uncomfort on the black king, being able to castle. Wells played bishop takes b3, and after knight b5, an intermediate move before taking the bishop back, the queen was chased back to b8, and now 8 takes b3 was played. So it seems as though, materially, let's count the pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So White is 2 pawns down here. Peter Wells played e5. And here we see quite a tactical little move. Knight bd4, so exploiting that pin on the pawn, and coming to this sensitive f5 square, which I can attest is statistically a great cause of winning or losing in many of my games this season, a knight coming to f5. It's often a key winning strategy. Peter Wells played knight takes d4, and after knight takes d4, instead of the bishop naturally moving out here to either e7 or d6, actually f6 was played. Wells actually tried to manually castle his king, so after b takes c3 he played actually king f7. Now let's have a look at bishop e7 here. Bishop e7, knight f5 again. It's a bit unpleasant, this targeting of g7 and e7, but bishop d6 might be more playable here. For example, rook d1 castles, and if knight f5 now, maybe rook queen g4 threatening mate, but now queen c7, and this might be sufficient. But Ripke gives actually a slight advantage to White still. White's only a pawn down here though, but this knight's quite a nice strategic trump card. And maybe White can continue here with h4. This is actually a Ripke recommendation, h4, trying to undermine these pawns potentially. Anyway, in the game, after b takes c3, king f7, and now we see knight f5 anyway, queen c8, and after queen f3, queen c6, it seems black has quite a pleasant position. Queen h3 was played, and after g6, the knight is being chased away from that key square. So Howell played knight h6 check. Wells snapped off the knight, and after queen takes h6, knight d5, it seems the worst is over for black. Ripke gives a slight advantage here to black. After c4, knight e7, but in the game f4 was played, so this is much more aggressive, but it seems also much more of a liability for White. In this position, actually c4 was the preferred move. Let's have a quick look at it. Knight e7. And now something like bishop e3 or queen h3. But anyway, so f4 was played in the game, much more aggressive, and sacrificing another pawn just on c3. So here, if f takes e, then queen takes e5 will be sufficient. White now played rook a4, sacrificing yet another pawn, and Wells took it. So now, the pawn situation is getting a bit ridiculous. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, and white just has 3. So 3 pawns down now. Howell plays rook e4. Quite an interesting game. Queen d3, just attacking that rook. Rook f e1. And now, after e takes f4, bishop takes f4, Ripper gives black as almost being 2.5 pawns up. But after f5 and rook e5, it is this critical moment in the game where black, I believe, went terribly wrong. White is threatening now bishop g5 with the idea of rook e7 and rook on the 7th rank. It's often another statistically winning idea, but it comes from Nimzovich. But the rook on the 7th is also a dangerous strategy in the middle game, not just the end game. Here, maybe black's best chance was actually queen d4 check, followed by knight takes f4, because the queen is protecting the key g7 square here from mate. And if rook won e5 to try and block, then knight h5, and black would be fine here perhaps. Queen c1, h6 to give the rook a square, queen c7, rook f8, and black might be wriggling out of this. But anyway, that's not what happened. After rook e5, rook ac8 was played, and now all of a sudden the tables start turning. Ripper gives almost equality now at depth 9. Bishop g5 was played, rook c7, and now, believe it or not, Ripper likes David Howell's next move, and he uses the h-pawn as a sort of destructive battering ram for the black king position. And we saw this in the game against Plaskett, the use of the h-pawn. So it's becoming a common theme in David Howell's attacking games. Here actually Ripper really likes this move, and white is assessed now at depth 10 as being a pawn up, 2 pawns up at depth 11. It seems it's a winning position for white. f4 was played, and now after h5, black is getting ripped to bits. Knight e3, h takes g, queen takes, queen h4, a crushing move, supporting rook e7. Knight takes g2 was played, and now the rook comes to the 7th rank with devastating consequences. After king f8, bishop h6, king g8, now rook g7, a beautiful little tactic, because the diagonal is vacated for the queen to come in, so that after takes queen d8, and white's picking up the queen, e.g. king f7, queen d7, and this kind of continuation would be all over. So let's have a look. So in this position after queen d8, black resigns. So let's have a look in overview and summary at this very interesting attacking game. So it was a c3 Sicilian, played in a kind of Alapin defence theme by black. And we see now white playing this strange looking knight a3, but obviously it can't come to c3. So it's got this idea of chasing the black queen back to b8, which it did in that variation. And now this knight d4, very cunning re-centralisation, coming to this strategic f5 square. And now we see white sacking both queenside pawns after first being prompted to do something with that knight on h6, knight on f5 going to h6. White, instead of playing the cautious c4, perhaps with the idea of bishop e3 and then f4, played a very gung-ho move here, just f4. So both pawns were sacrificed on the queen side for the sake of some extra rook pressure, pressurising to come to the 7th rank, which occurred in the game. But this one opportunity here was tactically was queen d4 check, followed by knight takes f4. Maybe black can get away with this and reach a winning position. But black would be kind of have some difficulty in the resulting variations, even though material up. So in the game though, we saw black quickly collapsing with the combination of this h-pawn battering ram and this rook coming to the 7th rank. It was all over. A fascinating comeback, 3 pawns down. I hope you enjoyed that game. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.